guys.
What's up, family? We gotta look this way. So today we do want to share some very personal and very traumatic events with you guys. So we do want to put a disclaimer out there. If you are not
from the past,
right? From the past. It's not something that is currently happening.
Right.
It's from the past. So if you do not feel comfortable talking about or hearing about miscarriage, the loss of pregnancy, death, anything like that, blood, then we do suggest that you click off of this video. This video is not for you on today. All right. Okay. All right. So, to start off our experience, so we have had 2 pandemic miscarriages. We've had 3 miscarriages altogether, and from the title of the video, you know that it's unexplained miscarriage, right? Our doctor did not find a medical reason as to why I kept having these miscarriages. It was in their eyes, right, like a luck of the draw kind of a thing. You got pregnant and it didn't stick. So, of the 2 miscarriages that we had during the pandemic, one was much more traumatic than the other. Very much so. So, just to give some context, 2 of our miscarriages, one happened before our before Joshua. One happened before Joshua, so that Joshua's 4 now. So that's 4 years ago. And then another one happens back in September, this past September, September 2021. And both of those miscarriages happened very early. We miscarried at about 5 weeks. And, for most women, if you're not trying to get pregnant, sometimes you don't even know you are pregnant and you just think that your menstrual came late. So that was the case with those 2 pregnancies. I was pregnant for a couple days, period was late, but we were trying. So I was checking, and that's why we found out. But a few days later, I started bleeding, which was like a regular menstrual. However, last year, so this was 2020, right? November 2020.
Was it 2020?
Yeah,
I think it was. Yeah.
So November of 2020 is when we had a crazy experience. So we said we want to try, so let's do it. So we tried, and on the first try we conceived, and we both were excited because we were trying for it. And so, like any other pregnancy, so with my previous doctor, I've switched OBs because of how I was treated with the last miscarriage. So I've switched. But my last doctor, she delivered both Elijah and Joshua. She usually schedules the very first ultrasound for 6 weeks. At 6 weeks, right around 6 to 7 weeks, somewhere around. No, I'm lying. 8 weeks. She schedules it for around 8 weeks. So around 8 weeks. Gestation, you should be able to see a fetal pole and you should be able to see a fetal heartbeat. So that was our experience with both of our other kids. We went in to see Joshua, and he's about 7-8 weeks. I used to call him my little lima bean because the fetal pole at that point looks like a lima bean, and you can hear the heartbeat. So we had that experience before, so that's what we expected this time around. However, COVID. I don't remember. Did you get to go with me to the first ultrasound, or was it the second one?
No, I was never allowed into any.
You came into one room with me, didn't you? One time you did it. It might have been the first one.
Probably was the first. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I remember. I went in with the tech.
Yes.
But they left me outside for a minute, and then they just called me in, had it done, and then they sent me out.
So with the whole pandemic, even if you go into a regular doctor's appointment, they don't want anybody else to come with you. So it was very sketchy because they said it depended on the sonographer, right? If the sonographer was comfortable, then he could come in. If not, then he couldn't. So the sonographer was fine with him coming in, so he came in. and we didn't see what we expected to see during this sonogram. So they did the sonogram, and sometimes for us women, right? Sometimes our dates can be off. So maybe, you know, the date that you gave for your last menstrual cycle was off, and so when they calculate the weeks that you're pregnant before you go in for your sonogram, that's off as well, right? So they thought maybe it was a situation like that. We went in. There was a gestational sac, but there was not a fetal pole. And so what the first sonographer said, since it was the first sonogram, she just said, "Oh, you're just early. Maybe we got the dates mixed up. You're just early, right? It's measuring about 5 weeks. And so just come back. If you come back in another 2 weeks or so, we should be able to see baby at this point." So, okay, right? We said okay. We went about our business. When I called to schedule the next appointment, the lady said, "Yeah, it was too early. I don't know why they even brought you in this early." You know, almost like reassurance. So I'm saying, okay, maybe it was just too early. Yeah. So the second sonogram I actually had to schedule within my work window. At the time, because we were hybrid, I had a long window where I didn't have any classes, because the way our schedule was set up, I had like my 2 prep periods, and then we also had what they called a brain break in the middle of the day as well, so students could kind of get off their devices and just allow themselves to rest. Same thing with teachers. So I had a good hour and a half, maybe a little bit more than that, window in the middle of my day. So scheduled the appointment, and I went in, and the sonographer this time was not so nice at all. She was not very nice. And she did the sonogram. And so if you've ever had a sonogram done before for whatever reason, right, they do their thing first. They measure, they look for whatever the doctor needs them to look for, and then they turn the screen to you and they say, "Okay, so this is what we see," right? This lady was not having it. She was not having it at all. She didn't want to turn the screen to me. She didn't want to show me anything. And I get it because of the situation at hand, right? Because she knew probably what was happening. And you know, it's a very delicate situation. This is a mom who's lost or is losing her baby, right? In my mind, because when you get a positive pregnancy test, that's your baby, right? So this mom is lost or is losing her baby. This pregnancy is not viable, and you know, I don't want to tell her that. Maybe that's what her attitude was, and I didn't really consider that at the time. But you know,
there could have been better ways to relay that message,
right,
rather than just be not coming forth with something, or you know, or like more like coming off rude.
Right? Yeah, that's true.
You know, it was totally unnecessary.
That's true. So at the end of it, you know, I said, "Well, you know, what do you see?" or whatever the case may be, and it was the same as the first time. There was a gestational sac. It hadn't grown. And there was still no fetal pole. And at this point, I should have been, according to my apps, I would have been about 10 weeks, 10, 11 weeks at that time. But according to them and their calculation from the first sonogram, I would have been 7.5 weeks. So, you know, that was it. I went back to work, and my doctor called me, and she said, "Well, you've been diagnosed with a blighted ovum." And a blighted ovum is where you have that sign of pregnancy, right, which is the gestational sac, but there's never a fetal pole, right? A baby never grows within that gestational sac. And so that's what I had, right? And I couldn't understand, and I was so upset because I had been pregnant for about 8 weeks, like counting the physical weeks, it's been about 8 weeks since I've been pregnant. So that was a blow. And so then we had to start doing all of the pre-op appointments, because I had to schedule a D&C. And
the one that blew my mind the most was, you would either miscarry or you would have to come in to get the D&C done. I was like, what?
So it's like waiting for it. Like, okay, you can wait, Oh no, remember? So my doctor told me she could give me a pill that would allow me to miscarry at home. Like, to expel everything, because it is a miscarriage, right? Because there is no fetal hold. So it would just allow me to expel all of that stuff, and I could do it in the comfort of my own home. I could get a D&C where they go in surgically and take everything out. Or I could kind of wait it out and see what my body naturally does. And so, I didn't want to take the pill. I was just like, it kind of, I guess it would give you some, it would lessen the anxiety a little bit, because you know when it was going to happen. But I'd rather not go that way, because we wanted to try to get pregnant again in the future. And I wanted to just make sure that everything was clear. So here's where the craziness starts. And I'm smiling not because this is happy, right? But you smile to keep from crying. So the crazy part is I start bleeding. And I'm at work. And I call the nurse. Now remember, our other miscarriage prior to this, it was like a regular menstrual. I was at home. It was right around Thanksgiving Day. As a matter of fact, Thanksgiving Day, a month before we got married.
Right.
Thanksgiving Day, and I called my doctor, had her call me back in the emergency line. She said, yeah, it sounds like you're miscarrying or whatever. And so I miscarried Thanksgiving Day, but it was more of like a regular menstrual period. So when I called my doctor's office and the nurse answered, she said, oh my gosh, do you need an ambulance? You need to go to the hospital. Like, what do you need? And I'm like, no, I'm not really. At the time, I wasn't really bleeding much. I guess you could say it was more like spotting. So no, I'm not bleeding much. I just wanted to call to let you guys know, because at that point, I was doing all of my pre-op stuff. I had to schedule that doctor's appointment so late in the day because I had to see my primary care doctor. I had to get a COVID test, because now before you go into the hospital for any procedure, right, you have to have a COVID test like 2 days prior to your procedure and all this stuff. So I remember it was a Wednesday, started bleeding. I was fine though, nothing serious. And I bled, throughout the week, but it was very light. Saturday came, and I had finished getting myself ready because my church does a soup kitchen every Saturday, and that particular Saturday, the dance ministry was providing the meal. And so I was getting myself ready. It was just Joshua and I home. You were at work. And Elijah was away for the weekend. And, I'm just getting stuff ready. So I bend over, giving Joshua a bath, and I was thinking like, because I bent over, how when you have your menstrual, like if you cough, if you laugh, right, at a certain point in your menstrual, if you do any of those things, it gets real. So I said, okay, maybe it was me bending over that caused me to have that rush of blood. I get on the toilet, and we have to know what's going on with us, right? So I look, I had my phone, I took a picture, and I look, and I could see tissue hanging from me, kind of going down to the toilet. And in that moment, I said, oh my gosh, this is what she was talking about. But never did I think it would be this bad. So, that's happening. And in my mind, I'm already like, okay, this is what the nurse was talking about. So I called my mom, and I'm like, I just want to run this by you or whatever, because my mom has also been in the same situation. And so she said, yes, that's what it is. You need to go to the hospital. So I said, okay. So you were at work. And it was funny. I had him on standby, guys, because we had already had this conversation.
Yeah, I remember before I left the house that morning, I was like, if you see anything strange, just call me. It don't matter if I'm at work. Just call me and I'll be here. And it was a critical time at work. When the call came in, I looked at my supervisor. I said, I have to take this call. Took the call, and she just broke it down to me. I'm like, all right, so now I gotta go. Ran out, drove home. I lost my wallet while I was running.
So he thought.
Oh, so I thought, because it fell in the car.
Right.
So, I was all over the place. Drove crazy home, got home, picked her up, back to the hospital. The hospital was where I was working at the time. Drove back there.
And it's only like a 5-minute drive. The lights make it a little bit longer, but it's really only a 5-minute drive.
Right. So got back. Yeah, man, it was. I don't think I've been that tense.
Ever.
It was. I don't think so. Yeah, it was a crazy moment.
It was crazy, and you ladies know, you know how we do, right? When we have our menstrual, we know like day 2 and day 3, right? Day 3 and day 4, we know what days are going to be heavier on our cycle. So as protection, or at least I do, right? As protection, I wear dark colored clothes on my bottom. So I had on black jeans because, you know, I'm bleeding. You don't want anything to happen. You don't want any mishap or anything like that. So I had on dark colored clothes. So I had on black jeans. And so he came to pick me up, and the way I was bleeding was something that was like out of this world, right? Because our bodies know that we have to get rid of this, right? And it's so amazing how God made us. Like, our bodies know this is not supposed to be here. I have to get rid of it. And so it does its thing. So get in the car. We get to the hospital. You think you lost your wallet. You finally find it in the back seat or whatever. But to describe the bleeding, right? And I'm sorry if this is too much information, but to describe the bleeding, it felt like how you leave your faucet running, right? You leave the faucet running. And then I had moments where I would pass tissue, and when I would pass the tissue, first of all, I felt it. It felt like a little ball, right? When I would pass the tissue, that's when the flow would get heavier, like it would just burst out. And so at one point when we were in the hospital, like when we were walking to the emergency room door, I was literally holding myself because it was just so much. I couldn't stop it, of course. It was just too much. So we get in, and I'm telling them, I'm having a miscarriage. Like, I'm having a miscarriage. They still got to do the triage and all this stuff. And then, now mind you, I'm bleeding, right? I'm not comfortable. To sit down would help a little bit because there's that pressure. And then every time I get up is when, you know, the gush will happen. So instead of having me in the wheelchair, they make me walk.
Yeah.
Walk all the way to the back. So I'm walking to the back, holding myself, and I'm so upset.
Show me your weakness.
So we were in the hospital where he worked. He came from work, so he still had his uniform on. So because originally they weren't gonna let him stay, but they were like, "Oh, you work here or whatever." Like, okay, you know, you've been in the hospital, you've been exposed, quote unquote, right? So he can stay. So he stayed with me, and I was upset because they had me in my clothes this whole time that I'm bleeding. I still had my clothes on, and I said, "Excuse me, you guys know what I'm going through at the moment." Sorry guys, we had a child interruption. So they make me walk to the back, but they let Huppy stay. And the last thing I'm saying, I was frustrated because I was still in my clothes. And mind you, I had bled in these clothes, right? It's only a few minutes from the house to the hospital, but the way I was bleeding, it was like hours. So first I had on my favorite pants too. My favorite pants from Old Navy. And I was so upset because I knew I was going to throw them out. Even though they were black, right? But still. So finally, I'm like, I know you guys, I delivered 2 of my children here. I know you guys have those mesh panties with the pads that they give you after delivery, right? Because you can't, I had C-section, so I couldn't have any like form-fitting clothes. So I know you have those things. Like, what are you doing? Give me something else to put on. And then at one point I said, you know what? I don't even want any clothes to put on. Just give me one of those pads that they put on the bed. And just let me sit. Let me take my clothes off. Let me sit. Let me get through this and just do my thing. So they did that. Meanwhile, they're trying to take blood. And my veins are not cooperating. They stick me so many times, and then you know how they put the needle in your arm and then they move it around a little bit to try to find the vein. As soon as that guy took the needle out, black and blue, my arm was black, and I'm like,
Yeah, and he did it multiple times. You look like a crackhead.
Like, what are we doing? Sir, both arms. He did both arms. I'm like, come on. You could have at least called somebody else to help if that was the case, you know?
But at the end of the day, that's what he ended up doing.
Yes.
And the lady that came back just did it one time.
So I was upset about that too. I'm already in pain in other ways, and now not only do I have to be in pain on my arms, but you're making me look like I was doing craziness. So we were going through that, still bleeding and everything. Then I'm already in pain, and the doctor sends me for an ultrasound. And I was upset because when you are that early in pregnancy, right? Again, my gestational sac was measuring 5 weeks. When you're that early in pregnancy, they don't do an abdominal, they don't do a sonogram on your abdominal, right? They don't do it on top of the stomach. You have to get a transvaginal. And for anybody that doesn't know what a transvaginal ultrasound goes inside you, so that way they can see your ovaries and all that good stuff. And even the ultrasound tech, she said sorry. She's like, I have to do a transvaginal. I'm so sorry I have to do this because I know you're in pain, right? Because I'm miscarrying, like actively miscarrying. And so she apologized, and it was painful. It was really painful because she had to press, right? She has to press up against my uterus and all of that stuff to see what is happening. And I was frustrated. So she had said once she finished the ultrasound that there was a nice sized piece of tissue that was like right in the canal, and that I should pass it anytime now, and that should have been the last of the tissue. Why go back to the room and then the doctor comes in to do a vaginal exam? Very rude.
Very rude.
Oh my gosh, babe.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's like the dumbest doctor I've ever met. Comes in the room, you know, I say hi. He looks me straight in my face and turns away. I'm like, what?
Meanwhile, I got my ring on, so it's not like you don't know I'm married.
Like, I felt like it's either he had expectations of what he was going to see, and then he never expected me to be there. But you know, that was just crap attitude. I don't know what was going on that particular Saturday. Probably he didn't want to be at work, but he had
No,
to
but
come.
babe, the whole
But
time
that
he was there,
you know,
like a doctor is going to address mom and dad, right? We're together. Like you address both of us. He did not address.
never.
Sorry guys, we had snow, and they're outside shoveling. But the whole time the doctor was in our little cubicle, right? Because we were never in a room. Every time he was in our space, he never addressed us together. And he never looked at you at all. And he said to me at one point, so he had to do an exam, right? He had to do a vaginal exam. And he looks at me and says, is it okay for him to stay? I said, what? Like, he's my husband. Yes. Like, how do you think we got to this point? Like, what do you mean? So, the doctor asked, could he stay in the room? Which was like, what? So, he does his exam, and he said there was some tissue there that he helped me to pass or whatever. And so hopefully, things should slow down soon. So after he does that, the bleeding does slow down. But then there was one point where I got up off the bed, and remember, we saw like that ball.
Yeah.
It was like this just ball. It was red, of course, like full of blood, but it was just this ball. And we both looked at each other and we said, oh, maybe that's the tissue that they were talking about that I had to pass. So then I had to put on those nasty clothes again so that I could leave. Are they coming back? I'm like, back on those nasty clothes. I was very upset. And we were very upset. I think sometimes in miscarriage, the man gets kind of lost in the source. because it's physically happening to us, but emotionally, that's both of us who lost the baby. So we leave. Then, of course, my wonderful husband's like, baby, what you want to eat? And you know I'm going all out because I don't feel good in several ways, right? My body is hurting. Emotionally, I'm hurting. So I want whatever I want to eat. So he's like, whatever you want, let's get it. So we went to Ito's. I ordered Ito's. We got Ito's takeout. And we went to pick up.
Was it that same night?
Yes.
Oh.
We got Ito's takeout. We went to pick up Joshua for my mom. And we went home. And then I bled for like another 5 weeks.
Yeah, that was...
Continuously.
Like, that was one weird thing. Like, did you stop yet? Oh, it looks like it's slowing down. Oh, now I'm starting to... What? No, that was ridiculous.
So imagine being pregnant for about 8 weeks. And then having what you think is a miscarriage, and then still bleeding continuously, nonstop. Not heavy, but still bleeding nonstop for 5 weeks. And in and out of this time, I'm back and forth to the doctor. So I'm seeing my doctor several times a week because she's doing what she should have been doing in the beginning that I should have advocated for that I didn't. She should have been checking my HCG levels regularly, right? Especially for women who have had miscarriages before. Check your HCG levels every couple of days, especially in the beginning, to make sure they're doubling and tripling how they're supposed to. So she kept checking my HCG levels to make sure that they were going down, to make sure that I was actually getting rid of all of the baby tissue. Mm-hmm. So I kept going back and forth for that. The numbers were going down, but she still didn't feel comfortable because I kept getting a positive pregnancy test, which means there was still some tissue left behind. So it was a lot. And then I remember, I got fed up. I was fed up at this point because I'm like, listen, I'm still bleeding. It's been weeks. Like, I'm ready for my body to just get back into regular mode, right, so I can relax, so I can have a breather. Like, it's a lot dealing with the miscarriage and then still bleeding after that. It's like, it is so much emotionally. And at this time, so we had started this process, was it December?
Can't remember.
I don't remember when I miscarried, but it felt like I was going through like the second half of the school year with all of this extra.
Right.
So then there's the stress of the school year, right? I'm hybrid. I'm required to be in the school building. My kids are not. But they can come and go as they please pretty much. If they're comfortable being in the building, they can be in. And if not, they can be home. So there's teaching that way, which was a mess for us, right? Because we just came off of being totally remote. So now trying to navigate this new world of hybrid learning. Then my kids being in school, it was just a lot. It was a lot. So I got fed up and I'm like, listen, there has to be something you could do to help me stop bleeding. And I didn't know what I was asking for. So I'm going in for a regular doctor's appointment. Hubby can't go with me because of the pandemic. So when I go in, I'm like, I'm still bleeding. She does the HCG and all that. And she said, listen, I forget the name of the procedure. If I can find it, I'll insert it in the video. But she says there's a procedure that I could do that's as close to a D&C as I can get in the office setting. And so I said, okay. Not even thinking. So she takes me in this room. She has like this whole surgical thing or whatever. I know she's not performing surgery because we're in her regular office. We're not in a hospital setting. Whatever she did, it was the most painful thing. And she couldn't numb me, or anything like that. So, and all of this in an effort to get the rest of the tissue out, to make sure that I had passed all of the tissue, because the only reason why I would still be bleeding is because I didn't pass all the tissue. Oh, goodness, it was a lot. I had to go back for another transvaginal sonogram to make sure that all of the tissue had been passed once all of this was done. So it was a lot. And again, that was another day that you felt horrible because I had to go by myself, which means now I have to drive home in pain because of what just happened in the doctor's office. So it was a mess. It really was a mess. But God is good. Even though we did have, so this was last year, November, that all of this, November, December, January, February, that all of this was happening. I say last year, but it's like last school year for me. So 2020, November 2020 is when it started, and it went into 2021. And so the question that I always had in my mind was, what if I can't get pregnant again? Right? Because of whatever she did in her office. Like, what if I can't get pregnant? What if she just did something she wasn't supposed to do? And what if I can't get pregnant? So God was faithful, right? And we got pregnant this past September, but unfortunately it was another miscarriage. But yeah, miscarriage 2020 was a beast.
It was a beast.
It was a beast.
It was a beast.
And this one's like, we not having no more kids. I'm not doing it again. I was already, very nervous to try to conceive again or whatever, because, the threat of miscarriage is always there, especially first trimester. It's just so iffy, so up in the air. And you were just like, nah.
Yeah.
Let's not go back for another one.
Nah, yeah, I can't go through that, and just I couldn't imagine going through that process again. So, my best solution to that is no more babies. Like, we good. Yeah, we got 2 kids. That's a team already. So we good. But and then it happened last year, and then another miscarriage, and we were that happened when we went for my friend's wife's graduation. The morning of the graduation party, that morning at PA, we drove all the way to PA for that. That morning, getting ready to go out and party with friends and family, and then that news comes. I just miscarried. It was a crazy day. It was
frustrating. And you know how as a woman, you're like, especially when you're trying or whatever, you're like, yeah, something's different. And so I didn't want to get too excited. I was expecting my menstrual to come that Friday, and I didn't want to get too excited. This is around Labor Day. Not Labor Day, it's a few days after Labor Day, because it was right before school started. So I'm like, I don't want to get too excited or anything like that, but I feel something's different. So I tested, because when you try, you test. And I did, and we got a positive pregnancy test that Friday, and then I started cramping. And I was like, oh man, like really? Because I know, what that cramping could mean. It could mean implantation, right? But at this point, I already have a positive pregnancy test, so you would figure implantation already happens. And so I already knew. I knew what was happening. But it was just crazy that I actually started bleeding on the day that we went to see a friend. Yeah. But we did have some good African food though, so that was the highlight. But I felt funny, right? Because I didn't expect I didn't expect it, and so I was just like, ooh, like I don't want to be in somebody else's house with all, I just want to go home. And so we stayed for a little bit, and then we left. We went home. But that's it.
Yeah, it's been a ride with your big head. It's been a ride. Oh
man.
It's been a ride, but I'm grateful to God. So far, so good. Like your grandma said, you're lucky I didn't divorce you yet.
Oh, hush.
Because the attitude that comes with the pregnancy and all that, but yeah, we know all that will come, so we just get ready for it. Take it as it comes. But yeah, I'm grateful to God for the journey so far.
Amen. So that's it, family. We wanted to, first of all, we've been going for a minute now, we back. But we wanted to just come back and to share that experience with you guys.
All right, now you know. Adios. Talk to you soon.
Oh wait, I'm sorry. One last thing I wanted to say, right? It's very important for us to be mindful as friends, as family, of married couples, right? Because it's so easy to ask that question, when are you getting pregnant? When are you gonna have another baby? A lot of people would ask us, because we have 2 boys, right? When's the girl coming? And so it's very important to be sensitive with our questioning, with our words, right? Because every time somebody was asking me that question, you didn't know that I was miscarrying. You didn't know that I've been bleeding for 10, 12 weeks, right? You didn't know that we had been, even after that, we took some time away from trying and just enjoying each other. But we started trying a few months later, and with no success. So we were trying, right? We were trying. So I just think, and this is not to fault anybody. If you're watching this video and you've ever asked us that question or anything like that, we always answered graciously, but we do think it's important for people to just be mindful. Just because people are married, just because they should, as far as society standards, be having children and all of those things, right? It's a very sensitive topic.
Yeah, you never know what the challenge is. You never know what that particular couple is going through. Certain questions can trigger some emotions, and and just make somehow be uncomfortable for that couple at that time. So yeah, we know some of those questions comes from a good heart. It's because you have those lovely expectations, and that joy of kids. You're asking questions out of the prayer that you have for that family, and it's much appreciated. But sometimes it might rub off, not in a good way.
Right.
So,
especially in the midst of a difficult journey.
Right.
All right, family. Well, that's all we have. Please do not mistake our smiles for being happy at any point during this process at all. Even being able to relay this story to you guys. It's a coping mechanism, right? And we do that often. I mean, we shouldn't, right? We should just let our emotions flow, etc. But it is a coping mechanism for us, at least. So we did not smile in this video because we were happy at any point in time, either while these events were happening or while explaining them to you now. But it is just one way we were able to get through the video. So again, thank you for watching. We do really appreciate you. And if you are experiencing a miscarriage, have experienced a miscarriage, are not able to conceive, are having difficulty,
Daddy?
our hearts go out to you. Our prayers are with you. And we just send good vibes your way.
Why you always show up at the end of the video?
We have an intruder alert. Intruder alert.
Alright, say hi
Alright,
and say
hi.
bye.
Hey guys.
Alright, say bye.
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 Thanks for watching, family. Peace.
Thanks for watching.
Thanks
your
for
peace.
watching, boys.
Oh my boys, what about the girls?
Bye, girls.